Okay, hey DJ Matt. Let me put this on mute. Great, it's on mute. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in for our special part 2 with Mr. Blanco. Thank you so much for joining me again for this, my edition of Quickie Wednesdays or Wednesday Quickies. And yeah, so every Wednesday on Facebook, I like to do a really short video on things revolving around romantic life, mental health, just everything and anything having to do with mental health. So that could be dating, sex, parenting, your love life, abundance, and we're actually going to be talking about that today. And I'm not gonna go over time this time, but I have a lot of great questions. So I'm really, really looking forward to today's talk. Instead of me introducing you like I did last time, Mr. Blanco, would you like to introduce yourself and talk to them, tell them a little bit about what you do and your journey and how you ended up here?
Yeah, for sure. So just to try to condense it as much as I can to not bore you with trivial details. I have a background in psychology and counseling, so that's kind of where my education lies. Married for 5 years. I'm not going to say freshly divorced. I've been divorced for quite a while. And basically started my own journey when I started my educational career, right? So a lot of that before my education was kind of being miserable, not really liking myself, not really liking my situation, and not really knowing where I was at. So when I started my education, I guess for me, education's a big thing. That's when I kind of started to dip into some really heavy stuff about myself. And then the further I got into my education, the deeper I got. So it kind of started with psychology and just like learning about the mind, the brain, people, blah, blah, blah. And then when I got into counseling, that's when the deeper work started. And you know how people always talk about the deep work with therapy and counseling and whatever. Same thing for the students who go, I guess, to a counseling program to become counselors. The work got deeper, and then I just kind of stayed on that path. And though I graduated my program, I'm still on that path of just growth. And it kind of really went deep, turned into now spiritually, kind of getting into that front. But yeah, I think for me, the condensed version, if I can make it condensed, is hard upbringing, not the best patterns and behaviors, learning about myself, getting into school, deciding to make a change, and then kind of seeing that change to fruition, come to fruition. So yeah, probably that'd be the best way to put it.
Yeah, like that. I like that you highlight, or at least you are self-aware enough to even mention that there are things that you yourself needed to work on. You know, like you're not coming, you're not showing up having the answers and not having to do the work and recognizing that you had to do the work too. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are certain people who they understand that you need to do some work because you know you as in the people, or they as in the people, they understand that life is pretty crappy sometimes, and they start seeing things that continue to happen, and then they're just like, there has to be more to life than this.
Mm.
And then they realize that there is, and then they realize that there are steps to do that, to make that change, and then they engage in that change. um, Other people don't. Other people don't recognize it, or they're just comfortable with where they're at. I wasn't comfortable with where I was at. I didn't like where I was at. I didn't like who I was. um, so the only way that I was going to get out of my situation was to change myself, because I can't change anything around me and I can't change anybody around me. So
yeah. So I want to go into, I'm just posting this live right now on Facebook as well. Before I go into the questions, I'll just introduce myself, just in case you're coming across me for the first time. I'm Lupita V from Lupita V Coaching, Mental Health Consulting. I am a licensed psychotherapist, confidence coach, inspirational speaker, and DJ, and I teach people how to get to their most happiest self by overcoming some of their biggest insecurities that sometimes look like anxiety or depression, smashing any goals that they desire, attracting abundance, love, whether it's with family or romantic life. And if you're interested in working with me individually, my information is in the box below. But let's get into the questions, because we got a lot of questions this time, and I'm really excited to just like get this talk started. So the first question is, and a lot of people wanted to remain anonymous, which is okay. I really appreciate all of the questions though. The first question is, and I'm going to pass it over to you, Mr. Blanco, so that I can finish uploading the link over on Facebook. But the first question is, why does it seem, so I'm guessing that this person, she's really talking about sex and dating with men. Why does it seem to disappear, or simply feel like men want to skip dating and go straight to the sex? Like, and she was also experiencing that they were not being honest with her. Like, there are a lot of women out there that are looking for that. Like, why go dip into the pond where people are just dipping their toe in and wanting them to go into the deep end? I guess from a guy's perspective, a man's perspective, excuse me. What is your take on why guys do that?
So just so I understand this correctly, it's the question is, why do men generally, not all, why are they interested more in sex and not so much in the relationship, and kind of just focus on, is that what I'm hearing?
Why are they choosing to skip the dating part and want to go straight into sex? That's that's what she's saying.
Okay, so well, number one, sex, right?
Yeah.
Everybody loves sex, right? I think that's both a man and a woman thing. I don't necessarily think that's just a man thing. And I want to put that out there, knowing full well that I was just all about sex and not really about dating.
Yeah.
So I'm putting that caveat out there. But I think it's really hard to like speak for all men, because I never ever want to do that, just like I don't ever want to speak for anybody aside from myself. But I know from what I know, dating is a scary thing. It's scary to put oneself out there.
Yeah.
Sex is less scary, especially if somebody's had experience with rejection, right? So I could easily say for myself, when I was on my thought trot, when I was having sex on my whole phase, whatever, it was easy to just kind of engage in sex. And if somebody rejects me, they reject me. Okay, that's cool. I've had that before. Dating is a different beast. Dating is basically essentially putting yourself out there to try to get to know somebody, to see who you vibe with, who you don't vibe with, and kind of just separating the wheat from the chaff type of thing. That is me speaking for me, because I know that when I began dating, like the actual process of dating, it was scary. It was very hard. And I had just recently come out of something that was something somewhat hard for me. So when I started dating, I literally told all of my friends, and I told everybody, including my therapist, I was like, yeah, this is a new world for me. I have no idea how to date. All I do know is how to engage and hook up. So for me, Definitely a scary thing, definitely a learning experience. It takes work to do so. It takes work to sit patiently with somebody and talk to them about their likes and dislikes and see where they're at and see what you like and see what they dislike and so on and so forth. So I think it kind of just goes alongside, learning about somebody and having the patience to learn about somebody if you want to go ahead and engage with them on a deeper level afterwards, right? On the flip side of that, if it's just they go directly to sex, again, personal experience, the interest is sex.
Yeah.
It's not dating. And that sounds kind of bad, and to put that on all men or many men or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, men who are genuinely interested in somebody will respect the fact that they want, or I guess men or women, I don't really want to put that in a box. Anybody who's genuinely interested in somebody will respect the fact that that other somebody doesn't want to have sex, or they're not allowing for sex to occur. They'll respect that and they'll be like, okay, cool. I like you. I want to see where this goes. And they'll continue that. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I have something to say about that. And we just got another question. But before we get to that next question, I think that you can tell what guys are interested in sex right away. What happens is, I think a lot of times we're not asking the right questions, or we're not having open enough conversations about that. And we're not doing enough detective work to see these red flags before you even communicate with them. So for example, if you're meeting them through social media or a dating app, look for these things in their profiles. Like they will have like risque pictures. They will have pictures, of where their pants are like super, super low. That's like a tail. That is a telltale sign for me. Like, yeah, that guy's trying to hook up. I'm okay, next. And I don't care if what your excuse is, like, oh, I'm really proud of my body. There's ways to do it in a classy, sophisticated way to show off your body, as opposed to something like that where like your the guy's pants are like really, really super low, and you kind of like seeing the pubic area. Like you're pushing it. I know what you're really after. And even within the text of the profile as well, it'll say things like, I don't know. It's like a super obvious sign, like who doesn't like to have their cake and eat it too type of thing, right? But they're not that obvious. Sometimes it'll be like, I have a healthy sexual appetite, or they'll make reference to sex within their profile. That for me, that's an automatic red flag. Like that is something that you're looking for, and that is at the top of your list. And what's not at the top of your list is you talking about how much you're going to treat me like a lady, or how much you are a gentleman, or the things that interest you that have nothing to do with sex. Because is sex important? Absolutely. I'm not going to call myself a thought, but I had free-spirited days. And I was really searching, really trying to figure out my sexuality, really trying to just figure out what it is that I liked, what it is that I didn't like, whether I was bisexual, whether I wasn't, and just really finding myself. And during this time, I did have a couple of partners here and there. But I never was in this place of like denial, or never was in this place of like, oh, how dare you want to have sex with me? Like it's flattering. And if you didn't want to have sex with me, then I would worry that maybe you're not attracted to me, but that shouldn't be the only thing. Right. What do you think about that? Like, those telltale signs of like the profiles that have like those really low, pant pictures, and, like they're not wearing a shirt. They're talking about sex within the profile. What do you think about that?
So that was perfect. I think it's great that you mentioned that, because I actually have one of those pictures on my profile. Now, yes, this is awesome. And this is perfect because we can shine a spotlight on this, right?
Yeah.
I have that kind of picture on my profile because I have been working on my body A, and I am proud of my body B. However, every other picture and every other thing I talk about, and this is where the detective work comes in, where you mentioned earlier, right? So let's say somebody has, low cut V, whatever, and they see, all right, okay, I see that, but what else are they about? What other pictures do they have? What are they actually talking about? So that's the clear cut sign right there.
Yes.
You can even flip that. And I have, as I'm dating, come onto profiles or whatever, like straight up cleavage shots, because they know what they have, and God bless you, right? Awesome. And then they also put, I'm not about blood, no hookups, no this, no that. It's just like, okay, so I'm getting a discrepancy there, but then that's where the detective work comes in. Okay, when you start talking to somebody, what are they about? Because some people, they like their bodies, and you know what? It's okay to like your body. However, if you like your body and that's the only thing that you're about, you'll start to notice that when you start to talk to them.
Yes.
So it's kind of just this getting to know them, getting to get through that phase of the beginning, the first date, the second date, the third date. And you know what? If the partner doesn't put out, or the person doesn't put out, okay, cool, like dope. You're not just about that. So I think that's one thing that's super important, because it's easy to see something and then judge right away.
Yes.
And just to make assumptions. And I know that I've done that, and I know that I've caught people on that stuff too. And they get super defensive on me, or they're just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm like, okay, cool. I misinterpreted based on what I saw. So let me get to know you and see what there truly is, see what there is on a deeper level. So I think it just goes back to doing like more of that, asking the questions, getting to know the person. Like, you can see somebody's picture and be like, oh, even this, you can see somebody that has no body pictures and they're super intellectual, and then you meet them and they're just like, what's up, you're gonna put out like right away? And you're like, what the
Absolutely.
Okay, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just using common sense and using what you know is true to be for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And just going off of that.
Yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I stress this so much. Communication is important. If you're looking for something and that's important to you, don't be afraid to communicate it. It just comes down to that. Like, if you're, this isn't just specific to women, this is to men too. Like, there's some guys that want to wait, they're okay with waiting. And that's because they really value like getting to know someone. They really value like, are we compatible? Are we a good match? Like, I'm not worried about the bedroom type of stuff, because if we're a good match, all of that's going to work itself out. We don't really have to spend that much time with that. But they're also not making it seem that they don't find you attractive. They're also making it, and that's the same with women. I think that it's important for a woman to do that too. Like, coming to a place with like, yeah, you are very attractive, you are very handsome, and that would be awesome with you. However, my goal is not to fuck. My goal is to make love. And if that's what my goal is, then I'm okay with taking my time. And then just being open with communicating that. And this segues perfectly into the question that we got. So how long should a man wait for sex from a woman?
How long should a man wait for sex from a woman?
Yeah.
That's honestly all subjective. Everybody's different. So it's when, I'm assuming, either partner, man or woman, feels comfortable with that and comfortable with themselves enough to do that. And again, communication, right? So it's like that's the bottom line. And if
Yeah.
there's no communication, then somebody's going to act as if, they're okay with it when they're really not, or they're going to try to do it for the other person and they're really not. Then resentment gets built, and then, built, and then bitterness is right around the corner. So it's subjective. It all depends on the person, and it all depends on, really, what are you looking to do? Like, do you just want to have sex? Cool, great, no judgment, really, no judgment.
Yeah.
Communicate that with the person that you want to have sex with, because if they're of the mindset of, no, I don't really want to have sex, or they're of the mindset of, yeah, no, I want to have sex, or they're of the mindset of, I do want to have sex, but I also want to build something.
Yeah.
Know that. Know
Yeah.
that right off the bat, because that'll determine where you're going to go with it. That'll determine how long it's going to last, and that'll determine whether you guys are just going to be compatible or not, based on what both of you are looking for separately.
Absolutely. Yeah. The same person, Necito, said, I've never met a guy that said sex wasn't important to them. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never met a woman that said sex wasn't important to her either. The difference is, and the difference is like a lot of women put an emotional connection, an emotional tie to sex, and that's why it's important for them to wait. But again, that's why I cannot stress this enough. Communication is key. If you've been waiting for a really long time, are you sure you haven't fallen into the friend zone? Have that conversation. If you've fallen into the friend zone, then it might be either time for you to be okay with being a friend, or saying like, you know what, this is not what I wanted, and I think it's time for me to move on. Even though I think you're a great person, friend, I got enough friends, which is totally okay. That's okay too. Yeah, again, it boils down to communication. That makes me think of, I just want to say this really fast. That makes me think of the movie, He's Just Not That Into You, where they had sex one time and Scarlett Johansson kept on coming around because they had sex like one time. And so this guy's like, I really like her. I think she's really into me too. Plus we had sex. So I'm sure that she's doing this because she really likes me. And what happened was, even after sex, he fell into the friend zone. And she was just kind of like using him because the guy that she really wanted was taken, and she was getting a lot of validation and attention from him. So I just wanted to bring that up. But next question. Why do you think people date when they have a wall up and they're not ready to? Like, why even date?
So there's two things to that I think are very important to note. One has to do their own work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so usually people jump into dating so they can numb out, so they can not do the work, so they can just fucking do whatever. That's the part of the dating scene, right?
Yeah.
Other people, and this is kind of where it gets a little bit deeper, right? So relationships are essentially mirrors to you, and you'll only accept what you believe you deserve on a very subconscious level. So when you start dating, when you start doing that, you'll attract what you believe you're worth, right? And I think it's okay to be able to date while you still have work to do on yourself, because your partner or your potential partner will also continue to teach you about more things that you have to work on within yourself. So it's kind of like a double-sided coin, where yes, it's important to do your work and kind of give yourself a break if dating is your normal go-to to numb out and to not grow. So yes, give yourself some time so you can be like, all right, I'm going to lay off all of that for a bit and just like inquire within and do what I need to do. When you've done that, also note that when you do get into a relationship, because we're people, we all have hangups. You may have a hangup or two or 5 or 10, and they may come up, right? They just may come up naturally because you're human and you're engaging with another human who may trigger you in whatever areas of your life. So for that, it's kind of like again, it goes back to a subjective matter where are you at? What are you looking to do? Are you looking to date to numb out, to not work on yourself, and to just have those walls up and to just go on your whole phase and just have sex and that's it? For me, I know my past, that was my numbing agent, right? I didn't really drink, I didn't really smoke, I didn't really do drugs. It was always sex for me. So I would always numb out with that.
Yeah.
Then I put that on hold and I started to do the work. And
Yeah.
after doing the work and putting that on hold, now I'm dating again. And now I'm also again seeing things kind of pop up. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it always happens no matter what.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of knowing where you are, who you are, and really being honest with yourself with where you're at and what you want to do. And on the flip side of that, the other person who is experiencing that from the person who either has the walls up, communicate, make your needs known. If the person cannot see you and meet you where you're at because they have walls up, take that as whatever sign you want to take it as, and then make your decision to either move on or stay or communicate or not. Really.
Yeah. I have always, I don't want to say always, like before I would fall in headfirst into things. So I would be the opposite person. I wouldn't have a wall up. I'd be very, very open and make myself extremely vulnerable. However, I was attracting people that had walls, and I can see the red flags in the beginning, but I just felt like I'm going to be different. They're going to open up to me. And when I finally get them to open up, that means that I'm special. And what that really meant was that they just never had opened up to anyone before. And I was putting on a bigger meaning to it than what it really was. Back in my free spirited days, I didn't have a wall up at that point either. I really communicated. I really, I don't know if there's a lot of women out there, and I hope anyone that is watching can share if they have had a similar experience. When I was going through my free spirited phase and searching and finding myself through my sexuality, every interaction, every connection was another opportunity to gain power. And it was like, okay, so I wasn't able to do this with this person or this time. Next time, I'm going to push myself even further and go even further and do something that I really wanted to do, or I'm going to wear what I really wanted to wear, or I'm going to say what I really wanted to say, and just pushing myself further and further and further just to really figure out if that's what felt like was in alignment with me. But I was attracting a lot of people that had walls up. And for me, that was a sign like, okay, if I'm attracting people that have a wall up, then maybe this is a sign for me to slow down. And I should just like take it for what it is, take it for face value. And what is it about this connection that I might be missing? Is there maybe just a lot of fun here that I could be having? Can this person turn into a really good friend? Can this person turn into like maybe like a business connection or a work connection or something like that? Because if they're having a wall up, that means I don't want to have a lot with them, like intimately or romantically, but that doesn't mean that they weren't brought into my life for a specific reason. And if they did have a wall up and I found them extremely attractive or sexually appealing, then I took that as a sign of like, okay, then this is my opportunity to push myself further within my sexuality and explore that more, as opposed to trying to find a permanent partner. So I'm just wondering if the woman that sent this question, if that's where she was with just coming across people that had a lot of walls up. We got a comment. Dan, hey Dan, thanks for tuning in. Those coping mechanisms can be a make or break for creating an authentic connection. Oh, yes. That is some good stuff. Thank you so much, Dan, for sharing that. So true. So true. Like when you're trying to keep yourself protected, you're also not allowing for the person to connect with you. And then my next question for that is, why do you keep settling for people that have walls up? Yeah.
I think so. The one highlight word there for me is settling. And I think if people know that they are settling, number one, that's one thing entirely.
Yeah.
If they don't know that they are settling, that's another thing entirely. So if they know that they are settling, then it's kind of like a self-worth thing, that they don't believe that they're worthy enough of somebody good, somebody better, somebody who matches them, somebody who like, just levels up with them.
Yes.
I think if they don't know, then that's just a matter of they don't know, right? And they're repeating patterns and they haven't been made aware of whatever they've been made aware of yet. So, yeah, I mean, that's the simplest way that I can put it, to be honest.
Yeah, I like that. I like how you're playing devil's advocate for a dangerous side. So let's get to the next question because I don't want to be taking up too much time. Let's get into narcissism because that's such a hot topic right now. I like that you're smiling because you know where this is going. It's such a hot topic where, like, my ex, I'm thinking maybe she was a narcissist, or I'm thinking he was a narcissist, and they have narcissistic behavior. Yeah, let's go deep in with that. You were smiling, so what came to mind right away when you were thinking about that?
So yeah, definitely a hot topic, right? I think with that term, A, it gets thrown around a lot for sure. But B, what people usually tend to miss out on is the fact that, okay, X is a narcissist, and then they're just like, oh, all right, but you have made the decision at some point in your life to be with this said person. You are continuing to put up with or deal with or communicate with said narcissist. So number one, and I kind of mentioned this in our part one, right? Where it's easy to spotlight our ex and to be like, oh, here are your shadows, here you're this, here you're that. And it's just like, yeah, but you have some shit. And within that acknowledgement of your own personal shit, that's when you're like, oh, okay, so maybe they weren't really rude, or maybe they weren't really mean, or maybe they set up boundaries on my ass because I don't know, I kept on pushing when I shouldn't have, or maybe whatever, right? So I think it's very telling. It's very telling when somebody talks to you about their ex and the only thing they're doing is complaining about their ex. Because then you're just like, I see that you don't like looking in the mirror. Cool. That's great. That's a great green flag that's a red flag for anybody, right? In addition to that, I also think it's important to be realistic about what the person is doing. So let's say they're a narcissist because XYZ. Maybe they're not necessarily a narcissist. Maybe they do engage in certain behaviors. And call that for what it is, right? Maybe they're just dealing with something. Maybe they have not had the emotional capacity to deal with, I don't want to say ridicule, but confrontation. So what they do with that confrontation is react or just kind of like buck back, and they'll just put it right back at you. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're a narcissist, even though they have narcissistic like behaviors, because they could be a genuinely good person and care about you and your soul and love you, but not really know how to be mature in the way that they need to be mature in terms of communication and showing that communication and showing that love. So that's, we could go all day, but yeah.
So that goes back to settling and self-worth and self-awareness. Like, if you are aware that this person is a narcissist, how much longer are you going to stay? And how much longer are you going to blame them for you staying? Even if you have children together, even if you have a house together, even if you have, like, we have choices. You have a choice. Is it going to be difficult for you to leave? Absolutely, absolutely. However, that doesn't mean that it's impossible. I just feel like it's really important to be self-aware and really, really take a look around and take a look at yourself in the mirror. If you truly believe that this person that you're with is a narcissist and they keep pulling you back in, what is it that they're feeding? What is it that they're filling that at the end of the day you're still not, I don't want to say happy, but at the end of the day you still feel victimized. You still feel taken advantage of. Then is that thing that they're filling or feeding worth it for you? And if it's not, and you still feel like shit afterwards, after being around them or communicating with them, then maybe it's time to go. And if you keep coming back, then I'm sorry, it's no longer on them anymore. It's on you. And why, what is it about this person and whatever it is that they're doing make you want to keep coming back to, I don't know, abusive behavior or disrespectful behavior or really high walls, or gaslighting, and just all of those things that a lot of people like to say that narcissists do. Like, I can understand from an abusive point where they would stay for years and they live with the person and they're trying to, save money and just trying to get everything together in order to make that big move, right? But if they don't live with each other and they're just dating, if they don't have any children, what is it that this person is doing that is still fulfilling some type of need that you need to try to fulfill that on your own within yourself, in order to not return to that type of relationship or that type of connection or that type of disconnection? Yeah, it just makes, I just have so many questions, because everyone's ex cannot be a narcissist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to add something to that if I could. So I think, and like you said, it goes back to the self-worth thing, right? The self-worth piece and what people are willing to put up with. I think also it's very important to have compassion for some people who are just in that mode where they are in that cycle and they don't know that it's a cycle. They just think that, oh, I'm not good enough. So they're in it, essentially. So for those people who are in that cycle, I think it's a matter of, again, it always goes back to the self work, right? And kind of doing that stuff on your own and seeing where you're at and seeing where your demons lie and seeing what your internal, like, core trauma wounds are, whether with your parents or whatever upbringing you had. And it usually stems from parents. That's just the way that it goes. We have core wounds that come from our parents, our relationship with our parents, that just spider web into every relationship that we have.
Yes.
So I think it's important to note that there has to be a compassion piece there too, right? Because there are people who are just like, why am I in this? What's going on? Like, this person's like this, my ex was like that, this person's like that. Like, what is the deal? They don't necessarily have the help that a coach can bring or a therapist can bring or a friend who's not going to be biased and tell them, yo, you're kind of fucked up and you need to take a look at this. They don't have those supports. So on the one end, you have people who are just like, that's all them, that's all my ex, I'm not going to worry about it because I'm perfect. And then you have the other people who are just like, I really have no idea what's going on and I need help. For those people, that's work. They're in that mode and they just don't know any better, right? There's just an ignorance play here where, and not ignorance in a bad way, but you just don't know. So when you know, when you start doing whatever you start doing with whatever help you have, then you start finding things out. And then you can kind of start that process.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is not to say, now that you brought up the compassion piece, this is not to say that I'm not compassionate towards people that are experiencing this. I always reverted back to the self-love and the self-worth. Like, babe, you are so much better than this. You are so beautiful. You are worth it. You are worth exactly what you want. And it's okay to let go of something that isn't working out for you in order for you to be able to attract something better. But it goes back to what you had said, like people attract what they believe they deserve. Yeah, I don't think that they don't know after a couple of times. Like after the first or second time, it probably might seem hard. Like, did that just happen? What's going on here? That was, what the fuck? You know? But and then like the third time, it's like, come on. We have access to so much free information. You can Google it at any point, you know, and come across some type of information that can make a person less ignorant. But yeah, I really do think it goes back to the self-worth and the self-love piece where like, if you're not happy, babe, it's okay to move on, you know, and figure out what you can do, how you can work on yourself to make sure that you don't attract that again. Or you can see those red flags early on so you don't have to waste your time in it. I want to go to the next segment because we're running out of time already. It's so fast. So ghosting. I want to talk about ghosting. Yeah, and we got another question. We will touch on that question quickly after we go into ghosting. But yeah, what do you think about ghosting?
I think it's terrific. No,
Yes.
no, it's I heard this thing, and this is definitely not mine. I heard this thing from Mark Groves. He has a handle on Instagram called Create the Love. But I heard it from him, and he maybe he's gotten it from somewhere too. But ghosting is basically when somebody breaks up with themselves for you, right? So you're talking to somebody and then gone. You can look at it like, yo, what's wrong with me that you blah blah blah, or you can look at it like, okay, so I guess cool, you've done me a favor because now I know that that's how you communicate.
Yes.
Now I know that that's what you're about. Now I know that you have no issues talking to somebody and then literally just disappearing. I think it's a telltale sign, right, of the ghost, how they handle stuff, who they are, and really what they're about. In addition to, it's also a sign of the person being ghosted where they're at, right? So they get ghosted and they're like, well, what's wrong with me? Like, why is there something wrong with me? And then they start looking at themselves as the problem. And then you, in that situation, that's when you kind of come in, no, you're cool. You know, people don't necessarily do that. And that's kind of like an easy way out. So they're dumping themselves for you. Consider yourself blessed, bullet dodged. And then there are the other people who are just like, all right, cool, grateful for you because, you know, awesome. You showed me a thing about you. You showed me a bit about yourself that nobody ever fucking really appreciates ever. And you've shown me that you do that. So be on your merry way. that's actually happened to me when I started dating and recently, well, months ago, whatever. Um, and there's this individual who was like, she just flat out ghosted me, like gone. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But here's the tricky part, right? And it's not even tricky, it's more funny.
Yeah.
On her bio, she mentioned how she like values communication. I have nothing else to say to that, right? Like, I
Yeah.
value communication, open communication, and then like vapor, they're gone.
Yeah.
So I think when I experienced that, I was just like, next, because
Yeah.
I've done enough work, A, with rejection to be like, all right, cool. And B, with myself to be like, yeah, no, I'm kind of digging myself and I know what I have to offer. And if you are just not about it, then you're not about it. More power to you. We just don't vibe. We just don't match. There's nothing wrong with you as a person. There's nothing wrong with me as a person. But if you're to revert to ghosting, then it's just like, yeah, I don't really want to associate with that, like at all.
Yeah. When you said, if you're just not about it, then you're just not about it. I'm like, be about it, okay? No, but yes. I just did a video on this that I'm gonna put up later this week or next week about getting ghosted. Um, I didn't use the example of them breaking up with you for them or for you. But what I did say was, congratulations. You dodged a big bullet with someone who obviously doesn't know how to communicate, you know? I'm thinking if I have ever ghosted. I am sure I have. I'm not gonna lie. And it wasn't intentionally. I think maybe either I got really busy with work or something happened. Shit, I was homeless like just a while ago. So there was a lot of, if I ever did, it had to do with me and nothing to do with the person that I was ghosting. And that's the point that I want to drive home, where it wasn't that they weren't enough for me. It wasn't that they weren't attractive enough or they weren't awesome enough or anything like that. It was that I was going through some shit and I just had to focus on me at the moment. And I didn't want to drag anyone into it, nor did I feel like I was in a place to put myself that vulnerable and just really put myself out there to allow for this person to get to know me. And this is like hypothetically, like speculation if I did that. And that's what I talked about in the video.
I want to speak to that.
Yeah.
I think that's super awesome. And I was thinking about something right as you were bringing that up.
Yeah.
So for people who might be like, well, what, whatever questions they have, there's a difference between ghosting and there's a difference between setting boundaries. I have definitely ghosted in the past. I think everybody does essentially at one point in their life. But I've also set boundaries between myself and people where I couldn't put myself in that situation when I was hurting. I needed to separate myself from that situation, from that person, so that I can heal. Yeah. Ghosting it's kind of like it's just a severe cutoff with like no explanation whatsoever. However, if there's a situation where something is just not okay, where there's healing that needs to happen, growth that needs to happen on either party, either or, and they benefit from a separation, they benefit from time apart, they benefit from a boundary. That's not necessarily ghosting. That's more like setting a boundary and like, yo, I can't talk right now. Maybe it wasn't really necessarily communicated. I know that I've set up boundaries because I personally could not communicate that boundary with somebody. Like it got to the point for me, I know I've set up a boundary and like just sometimes I've communicated with that boundary, like as a preface. Other times I just needed to be like, yo, this is too much for me and I can't deal. Boundary up, no communication. And again, that just goes back to where I was at emotionally. maturely, whether I was immature or whether I was mature enough to like talk about the boundary that I'm about to set, or whether I was just either in too much pain to where I just couldn't deal. I couldn't talk about it, and I just said it, and I needed to just back off. So I want to like note that in there too, because I think people can easily overlap like a ghost and just like, no, I am setting a boundary because I can't do this right now.
Oh, that hit like a that hit like a nerve. Because here's what, let me say this. You have the people that really did get ghosted and they have absolutely no idea why. And then you have the people that experienced a boundary and they don't want to acknowledge that that was a boundary that was being communicated before it happened. And that made me think of like when people say like, it came out of nowhere. Like, I don't even know why that happened. Like when guys are like, that whole stereotype of Latinas, like, you know, she just fucking gets all crazy out of nowhere, like psycho, like a drama. First off, Latina or not, she's not gonna do something for no reason. There has to be like lots happening up to that point. But that's another topic for something else that doesn't really have to do with ghosting. But yeah, just recognizing where there was there communication about things happening and it was hard for them to communicate at that moment. Was there communication about hard times and you just being compassionate, like, you know what, they're going through some shit right now. This is probably not the best time. I'm going to move on, you know, or choose to wait if you want to wait, whatever is best for you. But I'm sure that there was some type of flag coming up with, is communication going to be difficult with this person? Are they, you know, like going through a hard time, stuff like that. And then the difference between that and someone that just got ghosted right away, out of nowhere, with like just being cut off. So it's again, like doing a little bit of detective work and being open to having open conversations about expectations and things like that. Or not
100%.
even expectations, but standards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And
that's just like, my inner being has this, I have one expectation, and that is to be in alignment. When it comes to dating, I have more standards, like communication is important. And just things like that, having to do with what's going to feel in alignment with me, as far as the type of partner that I am trying to attract or trying to be with. But yeah, expectations are really different than standards. What do you think about that? You had a reaction when I said expectations.
no, I agree that they're definitely different from standards. I think it's important to have standards for oneself. And it's also just important to have standards generally and see if your potential partner can either meet those standards or not, because that also kind of like determines the separation, that determines the choosing, the courting period, I guess, or I guess pre-courting. It just determines who you're going to choose. Expectations, I think, so that's kind of like, that's, for me, that word is, it's dangerous only in the sense that if we start to have expectations of others, really of anything, but more so of other human beings, people, we're set up for disappointment.
Yes.
Hands down. And like the Buddhists usually, whenever they give their lessons or whenever they kind of like talk about this, to expect something from either situation, person, place, thing, whatever, that causes pain, that causes suffering, because you're expecting something to happen and you already have this something in your head that's going to play out in this way that, guess what, it may fucking not.
Yeah.
It may not.
Yeah.
So for me, that's kind of like a hot topic word, because I have noticed for myself how I have placed expectations both on people without communication, and that's definitely bit me in the ass hard. And also with situations, also with jobs, also with school, also with teachers, also with literally anything. Placing an expectation is just, you're placing an attachment to something. You're placing what you desire the outcome to be, and if it doesn't, flow into that outcome, if it doesn't become that outcome, then you're just set up for disappointment, and that's not, nobody wants to be disappointed, right? So yeah, that's kind of like, at least for me, I try to personally, because I kind of follow Buddhist traditions, and like, I don't want to say rituals, but like that's kind of the route that I go in terms of my spirituality. I try not to have expectations, because people are people. They have free will, they can do whatever they want, and I want to love people as they are, not as I want them to be.
Yes. Yeah. Expectations are really dangerous. That is a perfect segue to the last thing we're able to talk about today, because we're already over our time, which is abundance and money and gender roles as Latinos. So I'm a Latina, I'm Mexican, I'm also Native American, but I'm Mexican, and I am not going to lie. I was brought up with that expectation that the man must pay for everything. And in return, of course, then he gets like access. I don't want to say access to my body, because that sounds really bad. But like in return, like it's my job to take care of the household, to take care of the children, and to just run things while he's away breadwinning, right? One of the questions that I got was, why are men looked at as a meal ticket? I don't really know what the context was with this question that asked this, but I'm going to assume that it does within Latinos and those identifying Latinx has to do with that, with the masculine and feminine energies and what the culture has set out for what's acceptable and what those expectations are, right? We live in a different time where there's a lot of women that make more money than men. I am not going to lie and say that I don't expect, again, expectations, right? I don't expect a man to pay for the dates when we go out, right? I have been more comfortable with, because of the place where I am financially. And I think that's what it has to do with too. If you're female and you just haven't had access to abundance like that, then it's difficult for you to put yourself out there financially in that way anyway. So I am in this place for probably the first time in my life where I have attracted a lot of abundance. So money is not an issue to me anymore, like spending money and things like that, and doing stuff. But I wasn't always there. And times have changed where I didn't even have access to the things that I have access now. So I think it's a little outdated, but at the same time, it's almost, I don't know. I'm still in this like gray area of how I feel about it. I don't have a problem contributing. At the same time, I do want to see the level of effort. So let's say if he doesn't have a lot of money, right? Or he doesn't want to spend money because he's saving for something really important, something like that, then I would expect for him to be really creative with whatever it is that he wants to do instead of spending money. Like, are we going to stay home and have like a really romantic night in, the candles, and, you know, he cooks, or we cook together and we watch like a movie that both of us want to watch, or we playing games together, and just like being creative, stuff like that. Shit, I would love to have a date where like we read to each other, stuff like that. You know, if he wants to take it a step further and we're already in a relationship, like we can read erotica together or something, you know. But I want to see effort. That's what's important to me. It's the effort, the level of effort, and because I feel like I'm the prize. I am fucking amazing. I'm a queen, and I want to see what he has to bring to the table, because what I have to bring to the table is a fucking Thanksgiving dinner. So if this is my table and I brought the dinner, what the fuck are you bringing? You know? So if it's not the dinner itself, then I need to see some effort. I need to see what else you can bring. But at the same time, I'm not, and I never was that type of woman to go out with a guy just to get a free meal. Like, I was looking to connect with someone. And if it didn't turn out to be a great connection, then we became friends. And if not, you know, like, if depending on where I was, like maybe friends with benefits. And if that wasn't where I was, then it just didn't work out, and that's it, you know? So I can't speak for other women. If there are men out there that feel like they're getting that feeling of becoming a meal ticket, that's where the detective work comes in. Ask questions, be open with communication on what it is that you're looking for and the type of woman that you're trying to attract. But what do you have to say, Mr. Blanco, about Latinas and expectations and things like that when it comes to money and being a
So
meal
there's,
ticket?
yeah, there's so much there, right? So I kind of want to underlie this with just Latinos generally, going right to culture, men being the providers, men doing this, men doing that, women staying home. That's kind of what is the norm, right? That's been kind of breaking away from that for a while now. So I don't really necessarily see that as an excuse, unless you're like 50, 60 and you're dating. All right, keep that shit up. Cool, whatever works. But I think too, this is an important thing. So everybody has a relationship with money, and they have, just like they have relationships with other people and they tie their worth to that relationship, they also have a sense of worth with money. They also have a sense of worth with whether they are worth money, whether they are worth finances, whether they are worth abundance. So think about this. Person A, they have a really good relationship with money. They have no issue spending. They have no issue saving. And then person B, complete opposite. They have issues with money. And they get together. You're going to see a very specific dynamic with that. You're going to see insecurities on one end and just like security on the other. And there's going to be some interplay there. You also have other situations where both people are very insecure in their money. They don't really know where they're at with money, and they don't really have a great relationship with money. So that another piece, like another dynamic, another interplay. It goes back to, I think, with this topic, aside from the Latino, you know, like men take care of women, old story.
Yeah.
Let's put that aside, because that's not where we're at anymore. And that's definitely not where we're going. Because women are beautiful, women are powerful. Sometimes they want to pay for your meal, fucking let them pay. That's cool. But it's our personal relationship with money. So I can say that I've definitely had a hang up on this prior, because my parents never taught me how to save. Number one. I never thought that I was worth anything greater than what I really was. And then when I started doing the work on myself emotionally, with my relationships with myself, then my relationship to money changed. Then I started viewing it differently. Then I started realizing that, you know what, I want it and I want more of it, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
At all. Like if somebody's going to judge me for wanting money, okay, cool. So my relationship with money changed, and I started seeing things differently. In the past, I would always try to like one up with the whole money thing because I was insecure about it. Because I would always be like, no, I'm good. I can do this. I can take care of this, and then be fucking struggling for a month because I just overstepped. I didn't feel good because I wanted to show off. But then when I started like doing the work, when I started getting better with that, then that kind of like started to come off a little bit. And I remember having this date with somebody who, very special person. Our Valentine's date was me in her car with wine and like fucking Nutella sticks. And you know what? That's cheap as fuck, but it was memorable. We enjoyed it. You know what I mean? And it was nice. It was really fucking nice. Having said that, I could not necessarily be there if I didn't do a lot of the work that I already had done with my relationship to myself, with my relationship to people, with my relationship to money, right? And one thing that I kind of want to point to in this situation, so the person who asked the question, why are Latin males, and correct me if this is wrong or not, the question was, why are Latin males viewed as a meal ticket? Is that right?
Why are guys, period, viewed as a meal ticket?
I would say whoever's asking that question, look at that and see why you're asking that question, because that's coming from somewhere. So
yeah, it was a woman, and she had 3 brothers, and so these were the stories coming from the brothers, like that they were dating, and it was a lot of women were just trying to get free meals.
And then that right there, the highlight for me right there is going back to the worth and saying, yo, if you're attracting women who just want a meal and who wants you to buy their meal only, what are you doing? Who are you seeking out? You know what I mean? Like, where are you going with your dates? What are you putting out there in terms of what you're looking for, and what are you bringing back?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because that kind of just falls along that line.
Yeah. One last question, and that's all we can do for today because we have already gone over time. I love talking with you. So I know that this question is specifically for me, but I want to hear what you have to say. Can a higher value woman still submit to her man even if he makes less money?
That's good. So I think in that, number one, what is your definition of submit? Right?
Yes,
number
that's
one,
exactly
it's going to
what
be,
I was thinking.
Yeah, it's going to be different for everybody. Number two, it's okay for a woman to make more than the man. There's no fucking problem with that. I mean, that's kind of where we are right now anyway. And I don't foresee that ending. Number three, it goes back to self-worth and communication. So if the man is fine with being like, babe, you know what? I make less money than you. You make good money. You're happy doing it. I appreciate you. I love you. What's the fucking problem?
Yeah.
You know, and I think in that like recognition of not having to be the breadwinner, not having to be more than, not having to like fill that masculine role, blah, blah, blah. I would assume that the female partner at that point, or whatever way you want to break it down, breadwinner, not breadwinner, I would assume that the breadwinner at that point would just be like, I love you, you know, and like the whole submission thing is just right out the window, because it's just like a matter of that point. At that point, it's just a matter of loving one another and communicating and just respecting one another. So the submit word, that kind of like, I'm not too okay with that. I think it's more of a respect
Yes.
and communication with that, and where you value yourself in terms of, this is how much money I make and I'm fine with that, and you make more than me and I'm fine with that. But if there's an issue there, if I need to make more than you in this relationship and I'm not okay with you making more than me, male, female, whatever interplay there is, check that, because that's not, you know.
Yeah, you are just right on point with almost everything I wanted to say. In almost every relationship that I have been in the past, even if I wasn't in a good place financially, I still made more than the guys that I was dating. And it was never a problem for me. It was a problem for them. I don't know what Necitos is asking about, like submit. I, regardless of how much we make, regardless of how much less he makes or how much more I make, that is not the reason why I'm choosing to connect with this person. I'm choosing to be in a relationship with this person. I'm choosing to be with them because of the value that they are bringing to the relationship, to us and to me and to himself, like how much he values himself as well. And two, how do I want to say this? It's been, what's more important to me is, like I said, experiences and the effort. And of course, communication. Like, if they're bringing so much to the table and it doesn't really have to do with money, like, how can you walk away from that? How can you say no to that? Like, and I'm not saying that, oh, like I'm gonna get with some guy that's like mooching and, like some scrub or anything like that. But someone who I make more than, but still values me like the high value woman that I am, that doesn't make him not a high value man. It just makes him make less money than I do. That's it. It doesn't diminish his worth. He isn't worth less just because he makes less money. Like, there are lots of public servants or people within the social services that don't make a lot of money, but they really love the impact that they make on people's lives. Teachers don't make a lot of money, but they do really great work. Just things like that, where like if they are such a great partner and really are speaking to those things that are in alignment with you, like hugs and kisses and being there and being such a great listener and being a big cheerleader and your supporter and things like that, those things are way more valuable than money. And so, and not just doing it because they know that you have money, right? They're doing it because this is the type of person that they are. These are the things that they do. So that, I don't know what Necitos is talking about as far as like submit. Like, I'm not gonna submit to like any guy. But I have no problem making my man feel desired and adored and loved, regardless of how much money he makes. If he's proud of it and he loves what he does and he's making a big impact, whether it brings in a lot of money or not, then that's a high value person to me. That, not just a high value person, but that speaks volumes on their character. And that is someone that I definitely want to connect with,
Yeah.
The end, or to be continued. Yeah, I hope we answered most of the questions, but thank you everyone for tuning in to this live talk today with Mr. Blanco. This is all the time we have for today. I guess we're gonna have to do this again. This was really, really fun. I freaking love it. I love talking with you. Just so you guys know, we have decided not to really talk so much so that we can bring it all here. But no, I'm Lupita V from Lupita V Coaching, Mental Health Consulting. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, confidence coach, inspirational speaker, and DJ. And Mr. Blanco, before we go, please let them know where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram. I think my username is _SABM1. I'm on Snapchat too. Not really anything super like enlightening there. I'm also on Twitter. Still haven't gotten really around to using that. But you can definitely find me more on Instagram. That's kind of where I'm at, and that's kind of usually like where I post a lot of my information. And maybe not even more of my information, just information that I'm sharing, information that I find very useful and helpful just for the masses. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate you. Remember, you have always been enough, and you are so fucking worth it. Mr. Blanco, anything before we go?
Yeah. Ditto on everything that you just said. I think a lot of stuff that we pinpointed today was worth, right? Like self-worth, whether it's in relationships or your worth to money or your relationship to money. And the whole narcissism thing. I think when we start to look inward, and I kind of mentioned this the last time too, when we start to look inward, you can kind of tell the people who do the work and who don't do the work. And I think it's very telling, because when you start to do the work, everything changes. Your relationship to money, your relationship to yourself, your relationship to partners, your relationship to people, and just the standard that you set for yourself, not so much for others, but for yourself. You know, whether that's having sex on the first date, or whether that's paying for dinner on the first date, or whatever the case is, or whether that's communicating.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where when you start to kind of envelop that sense of just leveling up and bossing up and doing what's best for you, not so much what's best for anybody else, but what's best for you, period, because that's what we all need to focus on, is ourselves and growing. Then we essentially cause that change for others.
Yes.
So
yes, the ripple effect. Absolutely. Yeah. The connection. Yeah, I love it. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will see you soon next time. All right.